video that you're consuming on the internet, the mobile application that you're using, a newspaper that you might read, a magazine, the gaming that happened. I think Adobe revolutionized every aspect of that. And when we think about it, my goal as CEO is to just say, we cannot be in a position where all we're trying to do is preserve the status quo. And I think entrepreneurship and everything that you're engaged on is never taking no for an answer. And so the company has always found a way. We were the first company on the planet to move to software as a service. We completely transitioned our business model from a desktop business model to a subscription-based business model. We're now in digital marketing. That's become a $4 billion business. So, I think what's characterized Adobe is that we're always willing to look around the corner. We're always willing to make change. And I think that's what is required.
So Shantanu, just touching upon the same topic, 15 years ago, you took over as CEO, and you made one of the boldest moves to go from, to move to a subscription model. How did you get the conviction that you were doing the right thing? Because, today this is the way software is sold, but back then, when you're walking away from billions of dollars of perpetual licensing to subscription, did you have any doubts, or how did you get the conviction that you were doing the right thing?
Well, I took over in 2007, and as BJ said, I'm probably one of the more senior tech CEOs right now. And in 2007, I took over. In 2008, we had record revenues. And I said, how hard could this be? Even I can do the job. And then the recession hit in 2009. And the thing that I would always tell, again, entrepreneurs is that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So in 2009, when the recession hit, Adobe's revenue fell by about 25% because we were considered a discretionary purchase. And the thing that we were not doing was we were not innovating at the pace at which the market was evolving. Everything was moving to the cloud. Mobile devices were just emerging. And so I remember thinking that as a management team, we all said that we really need to make sure that we can innovate at a faster pace. And when we weren't innovating at a faster pace because of financial accounting standards bodies, you know that something is wrong, because the main thing that you have to all focus on is customers. And I think customers don't always know how to solve their pain point, but they recognize what the pain point was. So, in retrospect, BJ, it was actually a pretty simple decision. We had these traditional 12 or 18-month product cycles. We weren't innovating at the pace at which we needed to innovate. And so we took the bold move at that point of saying we will move to a subscription. And so our revenue dropped again by 25%, because as you pointed out, you don't recognize revenue up front, you recognize it. And so our EPS dropped by 65% in the first year. Now at that point, our market cap went down to about 6 billion. Eventually it got back up, as you said, it's closer to 200 billion. So things worked out. And the good news is, because things worked out, I'm here telling you the story. Otherwise, my successor would be here telling you what a bad idea that was.
No, I think, Shantanu, clearly this is going to be one of the legacies that you'll be remembered for. So congratulations on that. Now, as a leader of a very successful company like Adobe, how do you continue to inspire and motivate teams to achieve their next ambition and to continually keep disrupting?
I think the amazing thing that's going, you think about the demographics of India, you think about the demographics of Hyderabad. At the end of the day, your biggest real treasure is your people. And if you don't realize, we're in the intellectual property business. And when pre-COVID, when people worked in the office, we used to say our intellectual property goes home every night and hopefully they come back the next day. So the way I think, you try and stay young, the way you try and stay curious, is to really surround yourself by these scary, smart people. And so college hiring is a big thing that we do. We may not have a big presence here yet, but we do hire a lot of people who go for schools here. And so one of the things that I've learned is, by surrounding yourself, what happens, unfortunately, is the most senior you get, very few people tell you that you have bad ideas. Suddenly, all my ideas seem good ideas, except when they're college graduates. And I think it's amazing how much college graduates inspire you by the force of their ideas and by looking around the corner. And so I try and pay it forward by, if you have somebody who has a good idea. I mean, think about it. What the venture community did amazingly well. What the venture community did amazingly well is, if you have a good idea, all you need is one person to say yes. Somebody like Vani, who knows how to find entrepreneurs. If you say yes, she's going to invest in you. What happens in larger companies is that you have to get everybody to say yes and nobody to say no. And I think if you can try and keep changing that, and that's something that I keep trying to change within Adobe. I want to be the company that if somebody has a good idea and you have one executive who's willing to say yes, then we fund it. And that's very different, as we know, from other companies, but a model that VCs have pioneered.
Right. Now, it's never been more important for companies to build trust with customers and also stand for something bigger than their own businesses. What do you believe is the role companies should play?
Just to quickly, greatest companies in the world, and we celebrated 40 years last week, and 40 years, I think, in tech is one of those amazing accomplishments. We consider ourselves young, but there are very few companies. And I think at the end of the day, as all of you are starting companies, the advice that I would give you is, think about your mission, think about your vision, but also think about purpose. And I believe that most people do their best work when they resonate with the vision of the company, but they also identify with the values of the company. And so I'll give you one example of what we are doing. As we all know, there's so much content that's being produced through Adobe software. We think a lot about what we call the Content Authenticity Initiative, which is, how do you combat all of this misinformation that's happening? And by providing attribution, by using AI to understand when content has changed, by thinking about provenance, by partnering with distributors and people monetizing that content. So it's just one example of, if you have a clear purpose, and at Adobe we say our purpose is creativity for all. Anybody who has a story to tell, we want them to tell that story. And we think about technology to transform. We all know technology transforms, BJ, but if you can think about it in terms of how it's doing good, because the biggest attribute that you have on your balance sheet is your relationship with customers. So we think about it. It's one of those things that takes decades to build up, but you can lose overnight if you do the wrong thing.
Fantastic. Now, Adobe is known for seeing around corners. What are the big paradigm shifts that you see in technology today?
Well, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I really feel like if I was starting my career right now, in addition to starting it in Hyderabad, I would really think about the confluence of what's happening between technology and healthcare. There are billions of people for whom personalized medicine is going to become a reality. I'm fortunate enough to serve on the board of Pfizer. And so as I think about artificial intelligence, at the end of the day, what computers do better than anybody else is that they pattern match. And I think medicine is also one of those areas where you're trying to find it. So of all the technology trends that I'm really excited about, if you haven't looked at some of the new things that people are talking about as it relates to generative AI and what all of these chip companies are doing, that's an area in particular that I think is fascinating, and an area where people are going to incubate a whole bunch of companies. And with the population of the world, I think there's going to be a significant amount of good that can be done and a significant amount of money that can be made.
Fantastic. Now, it's clear that digital has forever changed how businesses across industries deliver their services and engage with customers and partners. What are some of the key shifts businesses need to make to capitalize on the opportunities to drive growth in a fully digitalized world? And I know that Adobe partners with some of the biggest brands in the world. What are you seeing and hearing from these large customers?
Well, maybe two quick things. The first thing I would say is, you have to know your customers. And I think, what digital enables you to do more than any other technology is know exactly who your customer is and deliver a personalized experience. So we call it personalization at scale. You were telling me about your startup, and what your startup is trying to do is, with the entire housing market, how can you provide a service that's personalized? And so I think personalization is one of these things, because with digital you can create profiles and you can do an amazing job. And you talked about partnerships. The one area that we have partnered is Satya and I, we were one of the first companies to double down on Azure as a cloud. And I think together we're really working on making sure that we can enable every company to do it. And a company like Nike, for example, now uses it where they are engaging with every customer so you can create your personalized shoe. So that's, I think, an example of it doesn't matter which industry you're in, if you're in the hospitality business, if you're in the telecommunications business, if you're in the healthcare business, if you don't know who your customer is, you're going to provide a generic service. And I think people's appetite for a generic service is non-existent.
Fantastic. So I'm going to close with my final question. It's going to be a little bit of a personal question. I know your parents live in Hyderabad. They're 92 and 87. What were they more proud of you for taking a 6 billion value company to close to 200 billion, or for having been awarded the Padma Shri?
Oh, without a question. I woke them up when I received the Padma Shri. I mean, again, it's one of these amazing things that, I was actually in